Hey, all right. I know week one was short, so hopefully, at least you've kind of settled in the class. You know where to locate and find everything. So let's go over what we've got for week two. We started off last week. You were supposed to watch the chapter 1 and chapter 15 lectures, so the intro and then the evolution chapter. We're going to add two more this week. You're going to do chapter 19, which is called systematics and phylogeny. I know that sounds terrible, but all that is looking at chapter 15. We talked about evolution and how everything is related. 19 is going to be how we categorize them or how we group them together based on how they're related to each other. Chapter 2 is almost totally different. It's on chemistry. So just a heads up, we're kind of shifting gears a little bit. Now, those chapters are going to be what's on your first exam. So exam 1, and I'll get into this in a little bit, but June 10th, so next Monday, is exam 1. And that's going to cover chapters 1, 15, 19, and 2. So as soon as you finish those lectures, go ahead and start studying. Remember that there's a study guide if you go to Learning Materials and then open up that Unit 1 folder. There's a study guide down at the bottom. All right. Let me go ahead and jump to the review quiz. So after you've watched those lectures, 19 and 2, watch them, take your notes, look over it, and then you've got a review quiz that's due at the end of the week, so June 7th. Okay. All right. Go back. I skipped one, so let's talk about this one. There is a practice exam. I mentioned that our first test is June 10th, and that's coming up pretty soon. Now, for our exams, and I mentioned this in the email I sent you earlier, but for our exams, we're going to be using something called Respondus Lockdown Browser and Monitor, which is it's going to use a webcam. Now, it's a software. It's all it is like a web browser like Firefox that you have to download to take the exams. But anytime there's anything technology related, we know that stuff can go wrong. So what I've done is I've made a practice exam just to go through and make sure that we can use the technology, that there's not any hiccups, that you've got it installed and it's ready to go when we take the test. So you can find that by going to the exams tab to the left, and then there should be a folder that says practice exams. Open that up. I've got a video. I want you to watch this video, but it's got a link to download the browser. It's got some more instructions, but watch the video, because the other reason we're doing this practice exam, number one, it's not only just to make sure that we can download it, but when you're taking a test, there's some pretty strict rules that we got to go by. Just like if you were in a classroom, you can't have stuff out. You can't have your phone or books out during a test. So the same rules are going to go for an online test. And on that video, I've covered just kind of what's expected. Before you take the practice exam, you're going to have to go through a startup sequence where you take a picture of you, your ID, and then you have to record the area around you. So I'm going to show you how to do that to make sure that you get credit for the test. Okay, if you skip those, I can't give you credit, because what this is just to make sure we're all on a level playing field, that if you actually studied and you're not cheating, that someone else can't come in and slip their phone in and take the test that way, because that's not fair to students who are actually learning the material. All right, so watch that. You can read through. That's going to be due Tuesday, June the 4th. So that's due pretty soon. Go ahead as soon as you get a chance and take that practice exam. You are not going to have to study for it. It's going to be questions like, what is the year? I mean, stuff like that. All right. I'm not even going to see if you got it right or wrong. I just want to make sure, number one, that you can use the browser. And then number two, when you do your environment video and all of that, that you make sure that you follow those instructions. Okay. If you will do that, I'm going to go through, let's see, Wednesday the 5th, when everyone has finished them. I'm going to go through and review the videos. And if you've done everything right, if you followed those instructions, I'm going to give you 5 bonus points. So that can help you out a lot. At the end of the semester, you don't want to wish you had those 5 points. So go ahead and do that as soon as you can. And then I'll review those on Wednesday when it's done. All right, review quiz, we got that. Okay, labs. Your first lab is going to be due June the 9th, Sunday, June the 9th. So to get ready for that, just to make sure that we're prepared, I want you to go over to the labs tab. It's underneath exams and quizzes, and you'll find labs. Open that up. There's a lot of videos. It gets better as we get on in the semester, I promise. But open up the labs, watch the video, and I'm going to give you instructions for how to sign up for your lab account and how you can kind of go through and do the labs. All right. There are a couple prerequisites that you need to do. So one of those is, it's called Getting Started. It's just to make sure that you can use the website where we're going to do our labs. It's going to get you to like type in answers, make sure you can enter all your data the correct way. And then there's another one called Lab Safety. I've never had anyone injured during the lab. These are fairly safe, but anytime there's a lab, there's a potential for someone to make a mistake. So we just want to make sure that we're following those instructions. So those two really short, it's going to tell you it takes like an hour or two. I don't think it's going to take that long at all. They're not long, but you need to go ahead and do those prerequisites because you're going to have to do those before you can start doing the real labs. All right. Let's say you say, forget that. I've done labs before. I'm just going to skip it and take the real stuff. The website, Hands On Labs Cloud or HOL Cloud, will not let you open up the labs until you do those prerequisites. They're not worth points, but you have to do them before you can take the real labs. So go ahead and do that early in the week. And then your first lab is going to be June the 9th. It's on research and the scientific method. That's something we talked about at the end of chapter 1. So this isn't, we're going to kind of ease into it. This isn't where you're going to be doing a bunch of chemicals and like tests and everything, but we're just going to go through some examples of the scientific method. Now, let me give you a heads up. There is one part where you are going to have to collect measurements from 30 different people on their height, their wingspan, so fingertip to fingertip, and then for their arm, you're going to measure from elbow to fingertip. And then I think it's wrist to elbow or wrist to fingertip. There's 4 different measurements you're going to have to get from 30 different people. That's a lot. I'm not expecting you to like go to the mall and like have your pen and paper and like sample people. So what I'm going to do early in the week, I'll probably do this on Monday. I'm going to send out a message to the entire class and I'm going to say, hey, here's some measurements from my family. What you can do when you get that message is click reply all and add measurements from your family. And then someone else add reply all. And before too long, we'll blow up our message board for a little while. But what we're going to do is we'll have probably 30 measurements. There's almost 30 people in this class. So if everyone gets your measurement and maybe one other person, we can get those in no time. All right. Just don't wait until the last second because these labs do take a little while. So give yourself plenty of time. I think this first one, it says to give yourself 4 hours. And again, that might be a little long, but since this is the first time, you might not be familiar with these. Give yourself at least 4 hours the first lab, and that'll give you kind of a feel for how long it's going to take you to do these things. All right. Okay, so the only other things we have, I gave you a bunch of assignments last week, but I pushed the due date back until this Friday the 7th. So the About Me survey, a lot of you have done that already. Syllabus quiz, same. Some of you have knocked that out. Diversity quiz, and then that chapter 1 and 15 review quiz. Those are all going to be due June the 7th. All right. If you haven't done those already, just make sure you get those knocked out before they're due. And then finally, just a reminder that exam 1 is coming up pretty soon, June 10th. So just make sure that you're studying for that, you feel prepared for it. If you have any questions when you're going through any of those, if you run into any roadblocks or anything like that, send me a message and I'll get back with you. All right. Thanks.